the massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council. Chambers sparkled under 3 different suns as Admiral Kekstar entered with his usual swagger. His blue-scaled skin gleamed in the light, and his forearms moved with practiced authority as he took his place at the floating command platform. Around him sat representatives from 11 other advanced species, each one proud of their military might and technological superiority. The crystalline hive mind representative Zixara hummed softly as her diamond-like body reflected rainbow colors across the chamber walls. Her thoughts connected to millions of her kind across the galaxy, sharing every moment of this monthly military assessment meeting. The Vorthan War Chief Gralmok flexed his massive muscles and tested his natural armor plating while waiting for the session to begin. His species had conquered 47 worlds through pure physical dominance. Admiral Kekstar activated the holographic display system and began reviewing recent territorial expansions throughout their sector of space. The Nixarian fleet had successfully absorbed 3 primitive worlds using their mind control technology. The Quantum Collective had eliminated resistance on 12 planets by simply erasing their enemies from existence. Each report brought nods of approval from the assembled representatives. Then something unexpected appeared on the communication system. A small blue and green planet called Earth had submitted an application for membership in the Galactic Defense Alliance. The chamber fell silent for a moment before erupting in curious murmurs. Admiral Kekstar pulled up the application files and began reading the military assessment data that Earth had provided. The first images that appeared showed human soldiers carrying metal tubes that fired small metal projectiles. Zixara began to vibrate with what could only be described as laughter as she shared the images with her collective mind across the galaxy. The idea that any species still used physical projectiles instead of energy weapons seemed impossible to believe. War Chief Gralmok stood up from his seat and pointed at the display with one massive finger. The humans appeared to be incredibly small and weak compared to his own people. Their vehicles moved on wheels instead of floating on anti-gravity fields. Their aircraft required the atmosphere to fly instead of traveling freely through space. Everything about their military technology looked like something his people had abandoned thousands of years ago. The Netherian representative Vextel studied the human combat footage with his large black eyes. His people were natural assassins who could phase in and out of different dimensions at will. Watching humans fight with chemical explosives and ballistic weapons was like watching children play with sticks and stones. He shook his head in disbelief that such a primitive species even existed in their galaxy. Admiral Kekstar continued scrolling through the human military data while the other representatives shared their observations. The humans seemed to have spent most of their history fighting each other with increasingly destructive weapons. Their wars showed massive armies moving slowly across landmasses, using vehicles that burned fossil fuels and weapons that relied on chemical reactions. None of it made any sense to beings who had mastered energy manipulation and quantum physics. The psionic Mentis delegate Zefduth reached into the minds of several council members and shared his assessment through direct thought transmission. He had studied thousands of species across the galaxy and never encountered anything quite so backward. The humans showed no evidence of telepathic abilities, energy projection, or even basic force field technology. They were essentially intelligent animals who had learned to use tools. As the presentation continued, the laughter in the chamber grew louder and more frequent. The human space program showed primitive chemical rockets that could barely escape their planet's gravity well. Their most advanced weapons required massive infrastructure and could only destroy single cities at a time. Compared to the planet-killing devices that most council species carried on their smallest ships, human military technology was laughably inadequate. The Ethereal Collective representative began glowing brighter as his energy-based life form processed the absurdity of the situation. His people could travel at light speed and phase through solid matter at will. The idea that carbon-based life forms still used metal projectiles and chemical propulsion was so primitive that it challenged his understanding of evolution and intelligence. Admiral Kekstar finally closed the application files and looked around at his fellow council members. The decision seemed obvious to everyone present. Earth's military capabilities were so far below galactic standards that they would be conquered within hours if any major power decided to invade their system. Their weapons could not penetrate modern energy shields. Their ships could not catch vessels that traveled faster than light. Their soldiers could not compete with beings who possessed natural armor, regeneration abilities, or supernatural powers. War Chief Growlmock declared that a single patrol ship from any council members' fleet could conquer the entire human species without taking damage. The other representatives agreed immediately. They had seen nothing in the human files that suggested any real military threat or capability worth respecting. The vote to reject Earth's membership application was unanimous and swift. Admiral Kekstar filed the request under primitive species that were not ready for galactic civilization. The council members began discussing their next agenda item while completely dismissing the small blue planet and its inhabitants. None of them noticed the small stealth ship positioned at the edge of their star system. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison sat in the pilot seat of the UES Nightfall, listening to every word through advanced surveillance equipment. His jaw tightened as he heard the alien representatives mock humanity's military capabilities and dismiss Earth as worthless. Morrison had served 3 tours in combat zones and knew exactly how dangerous humans could be when they were underestimated. 3 weeks passed before another ship appeared in the Zarian Prime system. This time it was not a stealth vessel but a simple, diplomatic transport bearing the flag of Earth. The alien monitoring stations detected it immediately and reported its approach to the Galactic Council. Admiral Kekstar was surprised that the humans had returned so quickly after their rejection. Captain Lisa Banks stepped off the transport wearing a crisp military uniform that looked plain compared to the advanced materials and energy fields that surrounded her. She carried no visible weapons and showed no signs of the technological enhancements that most spacefaring species considered essential. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple style, and her blue eyes showed determination rather than fear. The council chamber guards escorted Captain Banks to the center of the room where she stood calmly before the towering alien representatives. Admiral Kekstar looked down at her from his floating platform and wondered what possible purpose could bring such a primitive being back to their domain. The other council members seemed equally curious about this unexpected development. Captain Banks activated a small communication device and began speaking in clear, measured tones. She explained that Earth had received the Council's rejection of their membership application but wished to invoke an ancient galactic law that allowed species to prove their worth through combat trials. Her research had shown that many current Council members had gained their positions. Through similar demonstrations of military capability, the chamber erupted in surprised murmurs as the representatives discussed this unexpected turn of events. The combat trial law had not been used in over 200 years because most species either possessed obvious superiority or obvious inferiority. No one had expected such a primitive race to have the courage to invoke such a dangerous provision. Zixaris' crystalline form began humming with excitement as she shared the news with her collective mind across the galaxy. The idea of watching primitive humans attempt to fight advanced alien warriors promised to be highly entertaining. Her people began placing bets on how quickly the human champion would be defeated. War Chief Growlmock stood up and flexed his massive frame while grinning with anticipation. His species lived for combat and the opportunity to demonstrate Vorthan superiority over such weak opponents was too appealing to refuse. He had personally defeated champions from 7 different worlds and looked forward to adding a human scalp to his collection. Admiral Kekstar considered the legal implications while studying Captain Banks carefully. The combat trial law was indeed still valid, and the Council was obligated to honor such requests from aspiring member species. However, he suspected that the humans had no real understanding of what they were asking for. Modern galactic warfare involved technologies and abilities that would seem like magic to such primitive minds. The Netherian assassin Vexthal began calculating the most efficient ways to eliminate a human opponent. His natural phase-shifting abilities would allow him to become intangible at will, making physical attacks completely useless. The human would not even be able to touch him before being eliminated by his energy blades. Captain Banks continued, explaining the terms that Earth proposed for the combat trials. They would send a single warrior to face individual challenges against Council champions in different combat scenarios. Each trial would test different aspects of military capability, including ranged combat, physical endurance, tactical thinking, and adaptability under pressure. The psionic mantis delegate Zeftuth found the proposal amusing because his mental abilities could overwhelm most opponents before physical combat even began. He had crushed the minds of entire armies with focused telepathic attacks. A single primitive human would provide no challenge whatsoever for his supernatural powers. Admiral Kextar decided that accepting the challenge would serve multiple purposes. It would provide entertainment for the council members while definitively proving human inferiority to any observers. The trials would also serve as a clear demonstration to other primitive species about the futility of challenging galactic authority. The vote to accept Earth's combat trial request was unanimous. Admiral Kextar volunteered himself as the first challenger, confident that his personal energy shields and advanced plasma weaponry would end the competition quickly. War Chief Graumock demanded the second position, eager to crush human bones. With his enhanced strength and natural armor, the other species each nominated their finest warriors for the remaining challenge positions. The Ethereal Collective chose their most powerful energy manipulator. The Quantum Collective selected their reality warping specialist. The Nixarian Empire nominated their master mind controller. Each representative was certain that their champion would easily dominate any human opponent. Captain Banks transmitted the challenge parameters back to Earth through her communication device while the alien representatives discussed the specific rules and combat scenarios. The trials would take place in neutral arenas designed to test different military skills without giving unfair advantages to any particular species or fighting style. On Earth, Military Command received the transmission and immediately began debating who should represent humanity in such a dangerous situation. The chosen warrior would face opponents with unknown technologies and supernatural abilities while carrying the hopes of the entire human race. The selection process would require someone with exceptional skills and the mental flexibility to adapt to completely unfamiliar combat situations. General Patricia Stone reviewed personnel files for candidates who possessed the right combination of combat experience, tactical thinking, and psychological resilience. The warrior would need expertise in multiple fighting styles, experience with various weapon systems, and the ability to remain calm under extreme pressure. The choice eventually fell on Sergeant First Class Alex Cooper, a Delta Force operator, with an unusual background in both modern warfare and historical combat techniques. Cooper had spent years studying everything from ancient sword fighting to theoretical future weapon systems. His record showed consistent success in unconventional missions where adaptability was more important than superior firepower. Cooper received his orders while training at a classified facility in Colorado. The mission briefing explained that he would face unknown alien opponents using unfamiliar technologies in combat scenarios that had never been tested by human forces. His success or failure would determine whether Earth gained acceptance into the galactic community or remained isolated and vulnerable. The preparation time was limited, but Cooper spent every available hour studying the available data about alien physiology, known technologies, and recorded combat footage from previous galactic conflicts. He practiced with various weapon systems and combat techniques while trying to anticipate what kind of challenges he might face. Against opponents who possessed abilities that defied human understanding, Captain Banks remained on Zarian Prime to coordinate the trials and ensure that Earth's interests were properly represented. She watched the alien representatives make their preparations with growing concern about what they had gotten themselves into. The confidence and arrogance of the council members suggested that they viewed the upcoming trials as a form of entertainment rather than serious combat. Sergeant Alex Cooper stepped off the Earth transport ship wearing standard military fatigues and carrying a simple equipment pack. The alien observers gathered around the landing platform stared at him with mixtures of curiosity and amusement. He appeared completely ordinary by human standards, but looked like a primitive savage compared to the advanced beings surrounding him. Admiral Kextar examined the human warrior through his enhanced vision systems while checking for hidden weapons or technological enhancements. Cooper carried no energy weapons, wore no protective force fields, and showed no signs of genetic modification or cybernetic implants. Everything about him seemed disappointingly basic for someone who was supposed to represent Earth's military capabilities, the Galactic Council. Members had gathered to witness the first trial, which would take place in a specially designed combat arena. The facility featured multiple levels connected by ramps and bridges, with various obstacles and environmental hazards scattered throughout the space. Energy barriers could be activated to change the arena layout during combat, creating an unpredictable battlefield that would test adaptability and tactical thinking. War Chief Growlmock pointed at Cooper's equipment and laughed loudly enough for everyone to hear. The human carried what appeared to be chemical explosive devices, metal projectile weapons, and primitive communication gear. None of it looked capable of penetrating modern energy shields or competing with advanced plasma. Weaponry. Cooper walked calmly through the crowd of alien spectators without showing any signs of intimidation or nervousness. His brown eyes studied the arena layout while his hands checked his equipment one final time. He had trained for this moment, but nothing could have fully prepared him for facing opponents with technologies that seemed like magic. Admiral Kekstar entered the arena wearing gleaming energy armor that shimmered with protective force fields. His twin plasma rifles could disintegrate targets at the molecular level, and his targeting systems were connected to advanced computer networks that predicted enemy movements. The weapons alone were worth more than most planets and represented the pinnacle of Zephyrian military technology. The arena control system announced the beginning of the first trial as both combatants took their starting positions. Admiral Kekstar immediately activated his targeting scanners and began charging his plasma weapons while Cooper rolled behind the nearest cover and began studying the arena layout more carefully. The first plasma blast turned a solid concrete barrier into glowing vapor, demonstrating the incredible destructive power of Admiral Kekstar's weapons. Cooper moved quickly to different cover as more energy bolts followed him, each one capable of completely destroying anything it touched. The alien spectators cheered as they watched the primitive human scramble desperately to avoid certain death, but Cooper was not just running randomly. His movements followed patterns that confused the Admiral's targeting computers, because they were based on human military tactics that had never been programmed into alien systems. He used terrain features in ways that the predictive algorithms could not anticipate, creating brief moments where he was completely invisible to the advanced scanning equipment. Admiral Kekstar grew frustrated as his shots continued missing the constantly moving target. His weapons were designed to eliminate stationary or predictably moving enemies, not opponents who changed direction and speed in seemingly random patterns. The human's movement style was unlike anything in the galactic military databases. Cooper began his counterattack by throwing objects that were not weapons at all but pieces of the arena environment that he had turned into tools. A metal fragment ricocheted off 3 different surfaces before striking one of Admiral Kekstar's plasma rifles at exactly the right angle to disable its targeting system. The precision required for such a shot seemed impossible without computer assistance. The alien crowd began murmuring in surprise as they watched the primitive human use environmental elements as weapons. Cooper detonated a small explosive charge that created a cloud of dust and debris, temporarily blinding the Admiral's sensors and giving him the opportunity to change positions again. Admiral Kekstar activated his backup targeting systems and began firing rapid bursts of plasma energy in all directions, hoping to overwhelm the human through sheer volume of firepower. The strategy had worked against every previous opponent, but Cooper seemed to anticipate where each blast would land and moved accordingly. Zixara stopped cheering as she watched Cooper's tactical performance through her collective consciousness. The human was demonstrating spatial awareness and predictive abilities that should not have been possible without technological enhancement. His movements suggested an understanding of physics and battlefield dynamics that rivaled their most advanced military computers. Cooper used the smokescreen created by his explosive charges to get closer to Admiral Kekstar without being detected by the energy armor sensors. He moved through the arena using techniques that combined elements from multiple Earth martial arts, creating movement patterns that had never been seen by alien military analysts. When Cooper finally emerged from concealment, he was close enough to engage in hand-to-hand combat despite Admiral Kekstar's technological advantages. The Admiral tried to bring his remaining plasma rifle to bear, but discovered that fighting at close range while wearing heavy energy armor was more difficult than he had anticipated. Cooper disarmed the Admiral using leverage and timing rather than superior strength. redirecting the alien's own momentum against him in ways that the armor's stabilization systems could not compensate for. The techniques he used were based on principles of physics that worked regardless of technological advantages or physical enhancements. The arena fell completely silent as Cooper held a simple combat knife against Admiral Kekstar's throat while the alien's advanced weapons lay scattered across the floor. The primitive human had defeated the Council's most technologically advanced warrior using nothing but skill, intelligence, and tactics that no computer system had been able to predict or counter. War Chief Graumock stood up from his observation seat with his massive hands clenched into fists. The defeat of Admiral Kekstar was supposed to be impossible given the vast, technological superiority of Zephyrian military equipment. Yet somehow the primitive human had found ways to neutralize every advantage and turn the battle into a contest of pure tactical ability. The other council members began discussing what they had witnessed in urgent whispers. Cooper's victory could not be explained by their understanding of military science or combat theory. The human had used techniques and strategies that seemed to come from nowhere, as if he was making up new tactics during the fight itself. Captain Banks watched from the diplomatic viewing area with carefully controlled emotions. She knew that Cooper's victory was just the beginning and that each subsequent trial would be more difficult than the last. The alien representatives were no longer treating the combat trials as entertainment, and their next champions would be prepared for a more serious challenge. The second trial arena was designed to test physical endurance and strength under extreme environmental conditions. War Chief Graumock entered the chamber with confidence restored after studying footage of Cooper's first victory. The Vorthan warrior stood nearly 8 feet tall with natural armor plating, covering his massive frame and enhanced muscles that could crush steel with ease. Cooper appeared small and fragile, next to the towering alien warrior as they prepared for combat. In the environmental challenge chamber, the arena could simulate everything from Arctic cold to volcanic heat, low gravity to crushing atmospheric pressure, and various atmospheric compositions that would be lethal to most life forms. Graumock flexed his enhanced muscles and tested his natural regeneration abilities while the arena systems calibrated for the first environmental challenge. His species had evolved on a harsh world where only the strongest survived, and their military training enhanced those natural advantages through biological modifications that made them nearly indestructible. The first environment activated with a blast of superheated air that would have killed most species instantly. Graumock barely noticed the temperature change while Cooper immediately began adapting his tactics to deal with the extreme heat. The human's equipment included cooling systems and protective gear, but nothing that seemed capable of matching Vorthan natural heat resistance. Graumock charged forward with overwhelming force, intending to crush his opponent quickly before the environmental challenges became more complex. His massive fists could punch through reinforced steel, and his natural armor could deflect most energy weapons. Against a primitive human with basic equipment, victory seemed certain, but Cooper did not try to meet force with force. Instead, he used the war chief's own momentum and size against him, employing leverage principles and timing that turned Graumock's strength into a disadvantage. The human rolled away from each attack while using the arena's terrain features. To redirect the massive alien's charge, the arena environment shifted to Arctic conditions with temperatures that froze moisture in the air instantly. Graumock's biological systems adapted automatically to the cold, while Cooper quickly adjusted his equipment and tactics to maintain mobility in the harsh conditions. His movements became more efficient as he conserved energy and body heat through techniques that seemed to come naturally. Zixara observed the battle through her collective consciousness while sharing real-time analysis with her people across the galaxy. The human was demonstrating adaptability that exceeded anything in their evolutionary databases. Most species required technological assistance or genetic modification to survive such rapid environmental changes. The arena created a low-gravity zone that should have favored Graumock's enhanced strength, but Cooper adapted to the conditions. Faster than the massive alien warrior, the human used the reduced gravity to enhance his mobility while Graumock struggled to adjust his combat techniques to the unfamiliar environment. Cooper began using the changing environmental conditions as weapons themselves. He triggered avalanches in the mountain simulation that forced Graumock to defend against the terrain rather than focus on attack. In the underwater sections, he used current flows and pressure differentials to tire the larger opponent while conserving his own energy. The psionic mantis delegate Zefduth tried to analyze Cooper's tactical thinking through telepathic observation but found the human mind chaotic and unpredictable in ways that made mental intrusion nearly impossible. The patterns of thought were unlike anything he had encountered in thousands of years of studying alien psychology. As the trial progressed through multiple environmental challenges, Cooper demonstrated something that shocked the alien observers. He was learning from each environment faster than their computer systems could adapt the arena settings. His tactical responses improved continuously as he gained experience with conditions he had never encountered before. War Chief Graumock's regeneration abilities proved formidable when Cooper attempted direct attacks, but the human quickly shifted strategies to psychological warfare and environmental manipulation. Instead of trying to damage his opponent directly, Cooper began using the arena itself as a weapon against the massive warrior, the ethereal collective. Representative began glowing brighter as his energy-based consciousness processed what he was witnessing. Cooper was not just adapting to each challenge, but actually improving his performance as the trial continued. The concept of real-time learning and tactical evolution was completely foreign to their understanding of combat. Cooper caused a controlled avalanche in the mountain environment that pinned Graumock without seriously injuring him, demonstrating both tactical brilliance and moral restraint that surprised the watching aliens. Most galactic species would have used lethal force immediately. Rather than seeking non-fatal solutions to combat challenges, the arena systems registered Graumock's defeat as Cooper stood over the trapped but unharmed warrior. The human had won. Through superior adaptability and tactical thinking rather than physical strength or technological advantages, his victory seemed to defy every principle of galactic military science. The council members began discussing what they had witnessed with growing concern. Cooper's performance suggested capabilities that their databases claimed should not exist in primitive species. He was not just defeating superior opponents, but doing so in ways that challenged their fundamental assumptions about warfare and evolution. The Netherian assassin Vextel watched these victories with increasing unease. His natural phase-shifting abilities had always made him effectively invincible against physical opponents, but Cooper's tactical unpredictability suggested that traditional advantages might not be sufficient against such an adaptive enemy. Admiral Kekstar studied the combat footage while nursing his wounded pride from the first trial. The human was demonstrating learning capabilities that exceeded anything they had seen from other species. Each victory came through different methods, as if Cooper was developing entirely new tactical approaches during the battles themselves. The Quantum Collective representative began calculating probability matrices for the remaining trials while factoring in Cooper's demonstrated adaptability. The mathematical models suggested outcomes that seemed impossible according to their understanding of military capability and technological superiority. Captain Banks watched from the diplomatic area with growing confidence in Earth's representative. Cooper was not just winning individual battles, but proving that human military thinking operated on principles that the aliens had never encountered. Each victory forced them to reconsider their assumptions about primitive species and technological advantages. The alien spectators who had initially viewed the trials as entertainment were now watching with serious attention. Cooper's victories were becoming a source of concern rather than amusement as they realized that their technological superiority might not guarantee victory against opponents who could adapt and innovate in real time. War Chief Graumock struggled free from the debris that had trapped him and approached Cooper with a mixture of respect and confusion. The human had defeated him fairly without using superior technology or overwhelming force. The concept of losing to tactical thinking rather than physical dominance was difficult for the warrior to accept but impossible to deny. The third trial brought Cooper face-to-face with the psionic mantis delegate Zefduth in an arena designed to test mental resistance and psychological warfare. The massive insect-like creature towered over the human with multifaceted eyes that could see across multiple dimensions and telepathic abilities that had overwhelmed the minds of entire armies. Zefduth had spent centuries perfecting his mental domination techniques, and had never encountered a species that could resist prolonged psychic assault. His mandibles clicked with anticipation as he prepared to demonstrate the superiority of mental warfare over primitive physical combat methods. The arena itself was designed to amplify psychic energies while providing various obstacles that would test both mental and physical coordination under extreme psychological pressure. Holographic projections created illusions that challenged perception while subsonic frequencies disrupted normal brain function in most species. Cooper entered the arena with additional equipment that puzzled the alien observers. He carried devices that appeared to be simple electronic gear, but had been modified in ways that suggested preparation for unconventional threats. His tactical approach seemed to anticipate challenges that had not been officially announced. Zefduth immediately launched a massive telepathic attack designed to paralyze Cooper's mind with overwhelming fear and confusion. The psychic assault had rendered other opponents catatonic within seconds, leaving them helpless against follow-up attacks that could rewrite their memories and personality completely. But Cooper's mind proved chaotic and unpredictable in ways that made mental domination nearly impossible. His thoughts jumped between topics rapidly while maintaining focus on tactical objectives that seemed to exist on multiple levels simultaneously. The human consciousness was unlike anything Zefduth had encountered in thousands of years of studying. Alien psychology. The watching aliens murmured in surprise as Cooper not only resisted the psychic attack but continued moving and fighting effectively while under mental assault. His equipment included devices that generated electromagnetic interference patterns specifically designed to disrupt telepathic connections. Based on theoretical research from Earth scientists, Zefduth increased the intensity of his mental attacks, while using his physical advantages to pressure Cooper from multiple directions. The mantis creature could move with supernatural speed and strike with razor-sharp limbs that could cut through most materials. Combined with psychic domination, his attacks should have been impossible to counter. Cooper responded by using his understanding of psychology and behavioral patterns to predict Zefduth's movements despite the alien's supernatural abilities. He had studied recordings of previous mantis combat techniques and identified tells that remained constant regardless of psychic enhancement or dimensional perception. The fourth trial paired Cooper against an energy-based life form from the ethereal collective that could phase through solid matter at will. The creature existed partially outside normal space-time and could strike from unexpected angles, while remaining immune to physical attacks. Traditional weapons passed harmlessly through its energy matrix. Cooper had prepared for this challenge. By studying the arena's technical specifications and jury-rigging devices that could interact with energy, beings using principles from Earth's theoretical physics research. His equipment included modified electromagnetic field generators that could affect non-corporeal entities through quantum resonance effects, the energy being attempted to phase through Cooper's defenses but discovered that the human had created electromagnetic barriers that could actually harm beings existing in energy states. The modified equipment worked by manipulating the fundamental forces that held the entities' consciousness together in its non-physical form. Zixara shared the battle data with her collective mind across the galaxy while trying to understand how primitive human science could affect beings that existed beyond normal matter. The theoretical principles seemed sound, but the practical application suggested knowledge that should not have been available to such a technologically limited species. The fifth trial featured a shape-shifting hunter from the Nexarian Empire that could mimic any form and copy the abilities of opponents it had observed. The creature specialized in psychological warfare through identity theft and could become physically identical to its target while retaining supernatural strength and speed. Cooper defeated the shapeshifter not through superior technology or physical abilities but by understanding that certain behavioral patterns and psychological tells remained constant regardless of physical form. He used techniques from human psychology and criminal investigation to identify the real opponent among multiple duplicates. The watching council members began discussing Cooper's victories with growing concern rather than amusement. Each battle was won through different methods that demonstrated capabilities their databases claimed should not exist in primitive species. The human was not just defeating superior opponents, but doing so in ways that challenged fundamental assumptions. About military science. Admiral Kekstar demanded to know how a primitive human could consistently overcome technological and biological advantages that should have guaranteed victory for advanced alien warriors. His wounded pride from the first trial had grown into genuine confusion about human capabilities that seemed to defy logical explanation. Captain Banks provided the answer that changed everything for the assembled alien representatives. She explained that humans were persistence hunters who had evolved to chase down prey over vast distances and varied terrain, while adapting to constantly changing conditions and environmental challenges. More importantly, humans were the only known species that had spent their entire evolutionary history fighting opponents with identical intelligence and adaptability. Every human conflict had been an arms race of innovation and counter-innovation where technological advantages were quickly neutralized by tactical creativity and strategic thinking. War Chief Graumock listened to this explanation while reconsidering everything he thought he knew about primitive species and military capability. The concept of evolution through constant warfare against equally intelligent opponents was completely foreign to most galactic species who had achieved dominance through technological or biological superiority. Captain Banks continued explaining that humans actively studied warfare as both art and science, learning from every conflict in their history while constantly developing new tactics and strategies. Human military education included studying defeats as carefully as victories, creating a culture that viewed adaptation and innovation as essential survival skills. The Galactic Council members realized that they had made a fundamental error in their assessment of human military capability. They had focused on technology and individual physical abilities while completely ignoring the psychological and tactical factors that actually determined victory in combat situations where opponents possessed similar intelligence levels. CEPH single quote oat shared his analysis of Cooper's mental patterns with the other council members through telepathic communication. The human mind operated on principles that made it naturally resistant to psychic domination while maintaining the flexibility needed for rapid tactical adaptation under extreme stress. The alien representatives began to understand that Cooper's victories were not accidental or lucky, but represented capabilities that were common among human military personnel. Earth's application for membership had been rejected, based on incomplete information that failed to account for the most important factors in modern warfare. The final trial was announced as a complex group combat scenario where Cooper would face multiple opponents simultaneously while completing a rescue mission in a simulated urban environment. The aliens expected this overwhelming challenge to finally demonstrate the limits of human tactical ability against superior numbers and coordinated alien military doctrine. The arena transformed into a detailed city environment complete with civilians, infrastructure, and multiple objective points that Cooper would need to secure while defending against attacks from several directions. 5 alien warriors from different species would coordinate their assault using their respective technological and biological advantages. Cooper studied the mission parameters while the alien champions prepared their equipment and discussed tactical coordination. He would need to rescue hostages, secure strategic locations, and eliminate threats while protecting non-combatant civilians scattered throughout the urban battlefield. The complexity seemed designed to overwhelm any single warrior regardless of skill level. Admiral Kekstar led the alien team with renewed determination to restore his reputation after the humiliating defeat in the first trial. War Chief Graumock commanded the ground assault while Vexthal provided stealth support and Zefduth coordinated through telepathic communication. The energy being from the ethereal collective served as reconnaissance and rapid response support. The trial began with Cooper immediately demonstrating capabilities that shocked the alien observers. Instead of attempting to face all 5 opponents directly, he used basic communication equipment to coordinate with Captain Banks and turned the arena's own systems into force multipliers that enhanced his tactical effectiveness. Cooper established communication networks with the simulated civilians and turned them into an intelligence gathering system that provided real-time information about alien movements throughout the urban environment. He used their knowledge of local terrain and infrastructure to create tactical advantages that no individual warrior could have achieved alone. The alien team quickly discovered that their superior technology and coordination meant nothing when Their opponent could predict their movements and counter their strategies before they could be implemented. Cooper seemed to understand their tactical thinking better than they understood his, creating a psychological advantage that neutralized their numerical superiority. Captain Banks provided remote support through the arena's communication systems, while Cooper demonstrated the ultimate human military capability of tactical coordination with limited resources. He created force multiplier effects that the aliens had never witnessed by turning every element of the environment into a strategic asset. Admiral Kekstar's energy weapons proved useless against an opponent who could anticipate their targeting solutions and use the urban environment for cover while simultaneously advancing multiple objectives. Cooper's movements through the city seemed random but actually followed complex patterns that achieved multiple goals simultaneously. War Chief Graumock found his enhanced strength meaningless when Cooper avoided direct confrontation while completing mission objectives that the alien warriors could not prevent or predict. The human rescued hostages while the aliens were still trying to locate him, secured strategic points while they were responding to diversions, and eliminated threats they did not know existed. The most shocking aspect of Cooper's performance was his protection of civilian populations during the combat operations. He maintained moral principles and rules of engagement even while facing overwhelming odds, demonstrating that human warriors could uphold ethical standards under extreme pressure without compromising mission effectiveness. Vextel's stealth abilities became irrelevant when Cooper's tactical awareness allowed him to predict where the invisible assassin would appear and prepare countermeasures in advance. The humans seemed to understand Nexarian hunting patterns better than the aliens understood human tactical thinking. Zefduff's telepathic coordination proved ineffective against an opponent whose mental processes operated on principles that disrupted psychic communication between team members. Cooper's chaotic thought patterns created interference that prevented effective coordination among the alien warriors while his own tactical planning remained focused and clear. The energy being's reconnaissance capabilities were neutralized when Cooper used electromagnetic interference and environmental factors to create blind spots in their dimensional perception. The human had somehow learned to fight opponents who existed partially outside normal spacetime through purely theoretical understanding of physics principles. The trial ended with Cooper successfully completing all mission objectives while the alien team struggled to coordinate their response to tactics they could not predict or counter. The human had not just survived overwhelming odds but had dominated the battlefield through superior tactical thinking and adaptive problem-solving abilities. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the arena systems registered Cooper's complete victory in the most challenging trial they had ever designed. The alien representatives stared at the results while trying to understand how their best warriors using coordinated tactics and superior technology had been outmaneuvered by a single primitive human. Admiral Kekstar stood up slowly and approached Captain Banks with visible humility replacing his previous arrogance. He formally apologized for the Council's initial assessment of Earth's military capabilities and acknowledged that they had gravely underestimated human strategic thinking and tactical adaptability. War Chief Graumock declared Cooper to be the finest warrior he had ever encountered, not because of physical abilities or technological advantages, but because of mental capabilities that exceeded anything in their military databases. The other alien representatives echoed this assessment while struggling to understand the implications. Zixara shared the battle analysis with her collective mind across the galaxy while explaining that humans possessed the rarest military asset in known space, the ability to win battles that mathematical models predicted should be impossible to win. Their tactical thinking operated on principles that no other species had developed. The Council members realized that Earth's warriors had been shaped by evolutionary pressures and historical conflicts that created capabilities unmatched anywhere in the galaxy. Human military thinking combined creativity, adaptability, and moral restraint in ways that made them ideal allies and formidable opponents. Captain Banks accepted the formal apology while explaining that Earth sought partnership rather than dominance. In galactic affairs, humanity wanted to contribute their unique capabilities to the common defense while learning from the technological achievements of more advanced civilizations. The vote to accept Earth into the Galactic Defense Alliance was unanimous and immediate. The aliens no longer viewed humans as primitive supplicants seeking protection, but as strategic advisors and specialists whose tactical expertise could benefit the entire galactic community. Sergeant Cooper returned to Earth as a hero who had proven humanity's worth on the galactic stage, but more importantly, he had opened the door for Earth to take its place among the stars as teachers rather than students. The mockery had been replaced by genuine respect and desire to learn from human military traditions. The final scene showed alien military academies beginning to establish exchange programs with Earth institutions while requesting human advisors for their strategic planning departments. Courses in human military history and tactical theory became mandatory subjects for alien officers who needed to understand the principles behind impossible victories.